Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today includes a high of 58.9 degrees Fahrenheit and a low expected near 48.0 degrees. Coming up on the show, we will look into revelations from a new book regarding President Biden's state before his term concluded. We will also examine the housing market, investigating why potential buyers are hesitant to purchase, even though more homes are currently listed for sale. We will cover these stories and more right after this. Stay tuned to Alex's News. We're looking back this morning at the turbulent 2024 election cycle, particularly the shift that occurred when President Joe Biden stepped aside, leading to the first debate showdown between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. New details are emerging about the lead-up to that change. Joining us now is our news reporter, Ethan. Ethan, there is a new book causing quite a stir about President Biden's condition before his withdrawal.
That's right, Grace. According to reporting from AOL News, citing a forthcoming book titled Uncharted: How Trump Beat Biden, Harris, and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History, there were significant concerns within the White House about President Biden's state well before his debate with Trump in June 2024. The book is by Chris Whipple and is set to be released in just 5 days, on April 8th.
And what specifically does this book allege, according to AOL's reporting?
The details are quite striking. AOL reports the book claims Biden's former White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain found the president fatigued, befuddled, and disengaged during preparations for that crucial June debate. It even reportedly alleges Klain worried Biden might have mistakenly thought he was leading NATO, not the United States.
Leading NATO instead of the U.S.? That's a significant claim. How widespread was this apparent confusion?
The book, as cited by AOL, suggests it was quite serious. It apparently states Biden was often unaware of what was happening in his own campaign, to the point where mock debate sessions had to be cut short because of his confusion and fatigue. This all reportedly contributed to what was described as Biden's alarming performance in that debate, which ultimately led to his decision to withdraw from the race and pass the nomination to Vice President Harris.
So that set the stage for Harris versus Trump. Their first debate focused heavily on the economy, didn't it?
Absolutely. The economy was front and center. AOL News detailed how Harris really went after Trump's tariff proposals. He had suggested tariffs potentially as high as 60% on Chinese goods and a baseline of 10% to 20% on goods from everywhere else. Harris framed these as essentially a, quote, sales tax that would hit middle-class families the hardest.
And for viewers who might not follow tariffs closely, what does that mean?
Basically, tariffs are taxes imposed by a government on imported goods. The idea is often to protect domestic industries, but the cost of those taxes can get passed down to consumers, making imported products more expensive. Economists generally agree they can raise costs, though predicting the exact impact is always tricky. It certainly became a point of contention, really taxing the candidates' arguments.
Beyond tariffs, what were their other economic battlegrounds?
Taxes were another big one, Grace. AOL reported Trump pushed to renew his earlier tax cuts, make Social Security benefits tax-exempt, and also eliminate taxes on tips, as something both candidates actually agreed on. Harris, on the other hand, proposed raising taxes on corporations and long-term capital gains. Those are profits from selling assets held for over a year.
Inflation was also a major topic, right? How did they handle that?
They did. Harris hit Trump's record on inflation during his term. Trump fired back, claiming the economy was better under his watch, and, according to AOL, inaccurately stated that current inflation was the worst in American history. AOL noted that the actual annual inflation rate was significantly lower, around 2.9% as of July 2024.
It wasn't all economics, though. They attacked each other's fitness for office, too?
Yes, according to AOL's reporting on the debate, Harris directly accused Trump of undermining democracy, pointing to the January 6th Capitol attack. Trump, in turn, tried to tie Harris directly to the Biden administration's policies, suggesting she didn't have a distinct economic vision of her own and was just an extension of the previous term.
A very contentious campaign. And we know the final outcome.
Indeed. Based on information sourced by Perplexity API, which references various external news reports and analyses, Donald Trump went on to win the November 2024 presidential election against Vice President Harris.
A complex look back at a pivotal moment in recent political history. Ethan, thank you for breaking down those details for us.
You're welcome, Grace.
All right, for our second story this morning, we're turning to the housing market. It's spring, traditionally a busy time for buying and selling. But are buyers ready to spring into action? Joining us now with more details is our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, we're hearing there are actually more homes hitting the market right now.
That's right, Grace. According to MarketWatch, we are seeing an uptick in housing inventory as this spring selling season gets underway. On the surface, that sounds like great news for potential buyers who've been facing a really tight market. More options should theoretically mean a better chance to find something.
More options usually sound good. So are buyers snapping these places up? Are we seeing a surge in sales to match this increase in listings?
Well, that's where the foundation gets a bit shaky, Grace. Despite more homes being available, MarketWatch reports that buyers are hesitant to, as you said, take the plunge. There are some significant hurdles keeping them on the sidelines.
What are the main roadblocks they're facing? Is it still about the price tag?
Absolutely. Price and overall affordability remain huge barriers. As MarketWatch has consistently highlighted, home prices are still incredibly high due to those ongoing supply constraints we've discussed before, coupled with interest rates. It's tough for many people, especially first-time buyers, to even get a foot in the door.
And I understand there's a new factor potentially pushing those prices even higher, something involving tariffs?
Yes, exactly. President Trump recently announced new Liberation Day tariffs. For viewers who might not know, tariffs are essentially taxes placed on goods imported from other countries. Based on MarketWatch reports analyzed by Perplexity API, these specific tariffs are on imported steel, aluminum, and lumber, a key materials used in home construction. The analysis projects these tariffs could add more than $9,000 to the price of a typical new U.S. home. So that's another layer adding to the affordability challenge.
Over $9,000 extra, that is certainly not insignificant. Beyond the sticker price and these new tariffs, what about the cost of borrowing? Where are mortgage rates sitting?
That's the other major deterrent, Grace. MarketWatch notes that high mortgage rates continue to really squeeze affordability. Getting a loan is expensive right now. Financial institutions like JP Morgan are predicting that rates will likely hover around 6.7% by the end of this year. While that's slightly down from peaks, it's still significantly higher than what buyers got used to a few years ago.
And 6.7% doesn't exactly scream buy-in frenzy, does it?
Not at all. Zillow analysis, also mentioned by MarketWatch, suggests that we probably won't see home sales volumes return to pre-pandemic levels until mortgage rates come down substantially. High rates mean higher monthly payments, plain and simple, and that prices many people out of the market they might have afforded otherwise.
We've talked about buyers, but what about sellers? You mentioned more listings, but is the overall supply picture improving dramatically?
It's improving slightly with the spring season, but MarketWatch points out the market is still fundamentally dealing with limited supply overall. A big reason for this is something called the lock-in effect. Think about it. Millions of current homeowners refinanced or bought when rates were at historic lows, maybe 3% or even lower. They're reluctant to sell their home and give up that fantastic rate only to buy a new place and take on a mortgage at nearly 7%. They feel, quote, locked in, which keeps potential inventory off the market.
That makes perfect sense. So you have hesitant buyers facing high costs and hesitant sellers enjoying low rates. Is this situation uniform across the country, Chloe?
No, there are definitely regional differences. According to MarketWatch, some areas, particularly in the Northeast, are still experiencing very tight inventory of fewer homes for sale. But in contrast, other regions, like parts of the Gulf Coast and the Mountain West, reportedly have more active listings available, so a buyer's experience could vary quite a bit depending on where they're looking.
So more homes are technically available this spring, but the hurdles of high prices made worse by tariffs, steep mortgage rates, and homeowners locked into low rates are casting a long shadow over the market.
That sums it up well, Grace. More inventory is a positive sign, but MarketWatch, JP Morgan, Zillow, and Perplexity API analyses all point towards these significant headwinds, making it uncertain if buyer activity will really pick up steam to match the increase in listings. It's a complex picture out there.
Complex indeed. Thanks so much for breaking down those building blocks of the housing market for us, Chloe.
Anytime, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. In international waters, the U.S. Navy conducted a transit through the Taiwan Strait from February 10th to 12th. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Ralph Johnson and the survey ship USNS Bowditch made the passage the first publicly announced transit since the beginning of the Trump administration. The U.S. states these operations uphold freedom of navigation under international law. China, which views Taiwan as its territory, monitored the ships, calling the action a challenge that, quote, sent the wrong signals. This comes amid heightened regional tensions, including recent large-scale Chinese military drills around Taiwan. The U.S. continues to strengthen alliances with nations like Japan to counter China's assertiveness. The last similar transit involved a U.S. destroyer and a Canadian frigate in October 2024. Turning to Washington, efforts are underway to regulate artificial intelligence. A Senate committee recently advanced bipartisan legislation, including the Future of AI Innovation Act, aimed at fostering public-private partnerships and supporting the U.S. AI Safety Institute. While some lawmakers express concerns about potentially stifling innovation, other bills focusing on national AI research, resources, and education are also being considered. States are also taking action, with Connecticut planning regulations for 2025 and New York considering the Stop Deepfakes Act to require provenance data on synthetic content. The U.S. and India held a strategic dialogue focusing on strengthening defense and technology cooperation. Plans include signing a new 10-year major defense partnership framework and launching the Autonomous Systems Industry Alliance to boost production in the Indo-Pacific. The dialogue also emphasized technology through the U.S.-India Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, covering areas like space and semiconductors, and the new Indus Innovation Bridge for industry and academic partnerships. Ambitious trade goals include reaching $500 billion in bilateral trade by 2030 and finalizing a bilateral trade agreement by fall 2025. Cooperation also extends to energy security, including civil nuclear power. On environmental regulations, the Supreme Court recently ruled on the Clean Water Act, limiting the EPA's flexibility in regulating water pollution by requiring more specific permit conditions rather than broad ones. However, regulators can still use methods like numeric requirements to limit pollutants. Separately, the EPA has proposed updates to permits for industrial stormwater discharges, focusing on stormwater management. And in labor news, the United Auto Workers Union has secured several significant agreements recently. A tentative 5-year deal was reached with Rolls-Royce for over 800 workers in Indianapolis, featuring significant wage hikes, the elimination of wage tiers, and improved benefits. It was approved by members in March. This follows record contracts secured last fall with Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors after strikes, which included substantial wage increases. The UAW also averted a strike at Daimler Truck last April, securing a 4-year deal with wage increases over 25%, an end to wage tiers, and a first-ever profit-sharing plan for over 7,000 workers. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.7, Gemini Pro 2.5 Experimental, Gemini Flash 2.0, Perplexity Sonar, Perplexity Sonar Pro, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.